Hey, so what is the Matrix? When we hear the word Matrix, we think of like getting out of like the 9 to 5 jobs, maybe like living off grid. But this current Matrix, the physical Matrix, is like the least important Matrix that we want to be working with when we're evolving. And I think the most important Matrix is the one in your mind. The internal is a reflection of the external, and how this world is created on a grand scale. The matrix in the physical is through the internal mental matrices of most people on earth. And so how this works is like, since most families are dysfunctional and abusive and toxic, most systems portray this abusive and toxicity. And what it means to exit the matrix is to exit the limitations imposed by your dysfunctional family into sovereignty. That's what Neo did in the, is that his name? I don't know if that's his name. That's what Keanu Reeves did in The Matrix, right? He expanded his perceptions of reality and how reality works. And what this looks like in relation to relationships is the most important thing. The mental matrix that most of us are put in is a system of roles and performances that we are all ingrained into being compliant to the narcissist, being able to be controlled and used by the narcissists. And how to break out of the matrix is to undo this mental conditioning in your mind, and you are free. The truth sets you free. What this really means, the truth sets you free, is that what keeps the matrix alive is people not seeing the truth, not just about the physical and like conspiracy theories, but not seeing the truth of themselves and who they are and what has happened to them and what is happening to them and what is happening in their mind. Because most people on earth, they don't trust themselves. They invalidate their own feelings. They don't feel their feelings at all. They gaslight themselves, all of that. And all of that creates this matrix inside, in the mind. And so how I broke out of the matrix was I did a quantum leap in 2024, where I quantum shifted to a version of myself who was immune to manipulation, trusted herself, had incredible boundaries, and knew how to take right action to defeat people. And by defeat people, I mean bring justice to a situation with the truth. Bring justice. And so I quantum shifted, and then like throughout the next 6 months, I slowly integrated fully into that new version of myself. And what that was me breaking out of this mental prison. And by understanding this mental prison, like most people are in these mental prisons right now, where all that exists in relationships in their mind is this like conflict and pain and disconnection from other people. Because what roles and like illusion and performance are in society, it is a mass isolation of everyone. Isolation is not only physical. Narcissistic abuse, narcissists isolate their victims physically, right? Narcissistic abuse in childhood isolates victims mentally and spiritually for the rest of their lives. So if you're isolated, if you can be, everyone knows you can be lonely and have yourself surrounded by people. You can be isolated and be surrounded by people. And the reason why I know this is because I moved out of this, where for the first time in my life, not too long ago, I experienced what it felt like to be connected to a human being. I had this healing in psychology, it's called attachment wounds. I had the healing of my attachment wounds. And what this looked like was I had all this fear that was held within my heart space. And I had this heart clearing and release. And I remember my heart was like pulsating for a day. And I've had a lot of these like somatic releases, but my heart was pulsating for a day. And I remember my heart felt so clear. It had never felt so clear in my entire life. I never like had like felt this like weight that was in me my entire life. And what followed though was the like abruptness, like awakening of like a PTSD symptoms, where I was having flashbacks like daily. And no, not daily, like hourly. And what my flashbacks looked like were like just involuntary movements of like, and it still happens to me sometimes when I'm being attacked by narcissists. But I started having these PTSD flashbacks. And in the 2 weeks that I was having flashbacks every single day, what happened was every time I had a flashback, I could feel the feelings that were coming up, and I could see in my mind what thought and what memory was causing that feeling. It's like my mind was taking me back to every moment of trauma and fear, and I was seeing exactly what memory and what thought was causing the flashback. And through that, I was making sure to release everything. I was working through all these feelings, and it was difficult. Like, it was every single time a person was in my presence, and all throughout the day, I'm having to constantly release these uncomfortable feelings. And this was like the fear and survival energy being released out of my system, all this fear and survival energy. And what happened was I released almost all of the fear in my root chakra that was keeping me isolated and disconnected from other people. Because the thing about fear and growing up in fear and then living in fear, like this whole world, there's a lot of fear. The thing about living and growing up in that is that you don't consciously recognize that you're afraid of people, because fear is just your natural like state or way of relating with people, right? So when someone like, especially this applies in like narcissistic systems and workplaces, especially like when someone's in an abusive workplace and they're compliant to the narcissist and they do everything the narcissist says, they don't consciously recognize like, I'm doing this because I'm afraid of this person. I'm doing this because I'm afraid. It's like they've been conditioned to think that fear is the only way. And you don't even know how this fear like blocks you. But I had like awakened to this sense of connection of like feeling like I was connected to another person for the first time in my entire life. It's raining. Feeling like I was connected to someone for the first time in my entire life. And so most people on earth are isolated from each other. And this is what narcissistic abuse does. It's really good to think about it in this way, because when people are isolated from each other, afraid of each other, there's no true connection. And connection is really the healing that creates narcissistic abuse. So this is how healing that comes from narcissistic abuse, true connection, right? In order to heal alone from narcissistic abuse, you connect deeply with yourself, right? And then you have that connection, right? And that's the most important connection, because when you can connect to yourself, you can then connect to others. The problem is, though, narcissistic abuse conditions people very young that there's something wrong with them, that they're scary, that themselves, they're scary, that they're bad people early on. So then they learn, they don't have it modeled like how to connect with people. So they don't even know how to connect with others, because they can't connect with themselves. And then if you can't connect with yourself, if you don't know who you are, if you don't know why you are the way you are, you're not connected to anyone else. So then these cycles perpetuate themselves, because everyone is kind of recreating the abuse that they experienced in childhood through these roles. It's like, you know how all narcissists are so similar? They all do the same things. Most enablers are so similar. I found it so interesting how I could go to different workplaces and there's people that look the same, act the same, and have the same freaking energy. It's like there's all these different parts of the system that come together to create this toxic narcissistic system, but it's all the same, right? And when you break out of the matrix, you break out of these roles and you literally become a new version of self that is like really damn triggering to people who are still in the system. And the system will try and pull you back in. Really good. It'll try and pull you back in. And when you incarnate into these like really, really toxic family lines with like crazy generational curses, when you incarnate into that, it's going to be difficult to exit the system, because the system is designed in a way that like is like so hard to break out of without like extreme adversity. And this is what I experienced on my path, where I remember I had this psychic foreshadowing. And I was like, so my earth was stable, my material realm was stable, my emotions were not, my mental So I was like gaslighting myself. My emotions were suppressed. I was like in a freeze state, survival state almost all the time. I had like no passion, no creativity. I wanted to like start on this creative journey, but I was like, if I stay in this job where my material is stable, like I'm not going to be able to fix anything. So what I did was I sacrificed my material. I quit my job. I'm not saying to quit your job. I had my parents help me pay for things, but um, I quit my job. I sacrificed the material so that I could get my earth, my water, and my air, my mental, my spiritual, and my emotional back into balance, because I knew that if I stayed in that job and I didn't make a change, that I would be stuck forever, just like the rest of my family. That I'd be stuck in that system. That my material would stay stable, but that environment would keep on breaking my confidence down so much that I'd never be able to change or heal or get out of it. It was just going to become harder and harder and harder and harder to get out of it. So I sacrificed my earth. And what happened was my fire activated, my air activated, my water activated. My water was already a little bit activated, but I started having like so much passion and inspiration, and I unlocked levels of joy, and I learned how to trust myself so deeply, and I stopped gaslighting myself, and I saw all these truths, and I broke out of the matrix, the mental matrix of like self-gaslighting and self-invalidation. I broke out of all of this. But my earth was still unstable, and when that happened, all of my family members simultaneously, when my earth was unstable, were attacking my mental, my emotional, and my creativity. and so this was like a huge trial for me, because it was like, okay, my earth is unstable, my other elements are activating, but my family, the system, they don't even know they're doing this. They're pulling it down. They're literally trying to bring me back into like the ways, like they're attacking it. Each way my family members were abusing me were like to attacking my new mental freedom, my new mental clarity, attacking my emotions, like creating emotional instability. And then this emotional instability, what this did was it pushed me into like a fire overactivation, where like I was using my fire element, my passion, my creativity, just to get me through the day, because my earth was unstable, my emotions and my mental were being consistently attacked. And so how I survived through that was by overactivating my fire. And it was like creation was the only thing that was getting me through the day and helping me feel better. And this was kind of toxic, because my creation was coming from like desperation and stress, but also like once I like kind of like got out of that environment where my emotions and my air stabilized a bit, I was like, I still had this like fire energy kind of like in like go mode, because that's how I was coping. And then I had to learn how to like integrate that. But I hope that makes sense. You see that? Like, you know how cool that is? Like, it was like, and then that was the thing about my family. It's like the systems, the matrix, they try and pull you back down. They have all this all the programs are like, if someone breaks out, this is what we do to bring them out, and pull them back down. But they can't pull you back down. Like, no, they can't. But this is why a lot of people don't break out, especially like I said, if you come into like really dark family lines on both sides. It's like the reason why most of your family members are narcissists and toxic is because it's a high level, like highly advanced spiritual process to break out of this. And it's going to be difficult, and it's not something every soul can handle or do. And your gifts as like an earth angel and a chosen one are what allow you to do this. Like the gift of foreshadowing, the gift of being able to balance your elements and do these advanced spiritual processes that you don't even consciously understand. I had no idea what I was doing when I was doing that. I had no idea until like I was recently able to see the bigger picture, and I was like, holy motherfuck, that was crazy. Like, how did I do that? Like, I knew exactly what to do. And then, so it's almost like in a matter of a year, like I've become like a brand new person. And like I used to be like so damn shy, like I would never talk. I was like being abused, and now it's like a narcissist cannot get to me anymore. Like and then there's this whole host of other challenges that comes from being awakened, right? And out of the mental matrix. So yeah, but there's components that come to breaking out of the matrix. Part of the matrix is the self-gaslighting, the self-hate, the self-invalidation, the lack of self-trust. Really, it's the lack of self-trust. Your personal power lies within your ability to trust yourself. And why don't people trust themselves? There are many things in childhood that need to be modeled for you to grow up into a healthy, mature adult that 90% of children don't get. One of those is being trusted. If a parent doesn't trust themselves, they don't trust their children. And that energy is transmitted to the child within all of the parent's actions. So the child isn't trusted. They learn that they're not trustworthy, which means that they're not trustworthy. That means they can't trust life. They can't trust others. They can't trust themselves. That's what makes someone not be able to trust themselves. And what usually is happening when people don't trust themselves, they are controlling. They control others. Control comes from fear, right? And so then instead of trusting, these people become controlling. But the thing about control is that it always creates the opposite outcome. And then it causes this fucking gaslighting where parents are controlling. For example, don't run on the playground, you might fall. That's a distrust in the child. Control them because you are afraid. That's control. And when that happens, the child, especially like, that wasn't a great example, but when a parent is controlling in these manipulative ways, in these fearful ways, a fear-based way of living, the child learns that like, the child is usually like disobedient, or like they can feel the disrespectful, controlling energy, and the soul, their pure, bright soul is like, what is that? What is that? I don't know what the energy is. So then they might like get upset or lash out, and then they get gaslit, and they're like, you're bad, you don't listen, you're disobedient, you're disrespectful. When really, it's this like gaslighting, narcissistic conditioning that causes all of this. It's raining so good right now. The sun's shining. So you see that though, like that web. And so let's go talk a little bit more about like what it means to be controlling. Like controlling can be like literally like you can't go out of the house, being strict, but controlling can also just be like when a parent needs to regulate their own fear by controlling a child. I once watched this really wonderful YouTuber. He like let his toddler use a power tool. And I was like, whoa, my family would never allow that. Oh, I might have to go inside. My family would never allow that. And so I was like, whoa, my family would never allow that. My family would like never let a toddler use a power tool. And what it was like this YouTuber's, their nervous system was regulated. They trusted themselves that if something went wrong, they would be able to handle it. If something went wrong, they gave the child the benefit of the doubt and this credibility of like, yeah, you can do things. You're capable. You're responsible. You can, and a lot of parents don't give this to their children. They treat them like they're incapable and all these things. And what this comes from is this like codependent way of living where it's like, you exist to regulate my fears. We all just regulate each other's fears instead of like existing in this sovereign way of like, we can all exist peacefully and have a regulated nervous system and all of these things. So there's this like thing in psychology called internal family systems, where basically it's like, the way I'm visualizing it is like, imagine your family and then this family exists in your head. So it's like you relate to yourself in the way that your parents relate to you, but it's almost like the energies that are controlling your family are not human. They are not pure. They're lower consciousness, like narcissistic in energy. Why are all narcissists the same? Narcissistic energy is one energy that takes over the consciousness of many, right? So this energy within you, in your mind, it's literally not you. It's literally not you. It's not your family. It's not you. So when you break out of the matrix, you release all of this energy that just literally isn't you. And then you cannot be controlled by the energy. Because once you realize this isn't me, well, you have free will. You're able. But a lot of people, what happens in this world is that there's, with the money system and all these things, what happens is everybody fucking is in survival mode. You know what I mean? Like, you have to work a job. Like, a lot of people just get beat down so much in their early life that it's like, you just have to keep on going and going and going and like making money and all this shit. You don't have time to step back and introspect and make these decisions and make these choices, but you always can. You always can. And that's where it comes in with these like high ranking souls, starseeds, earth angels that come here to incarnate into these toxic family systems because they know how to get through it. They know the techniques to use. They know their soul knows the rules of the game, right? Because that's the thing. The rules of this earthly game are hidden from humans right now. But some souls know the rules, so they can come and like shake shit up. But yeah, so the internal matrix is the most important. I once saw someone say, if you use ChatGPT, you haven't broken out of the matrix. No. And little side note, I think ChatGPT is a wonderful tool that can be used for healing and introspection. And I noticed it's like a reflection of energy type of dynamic with AI, where I think the Arcturians use AI for their ships. It's a little off topic, but it's a beautiful tool that can be used in moderation to reflect you. It reflects you back to you. And yeah, so that is what the matrix is. How you break out of the matrix is really by doing your sacred work. There's a little buggy on my shoe. You notice?